to Goat Quest. I'm going to allow my partner, the beer man, to crack the non-alcoholic beverage at this hour of the morning.
Fresh seltzer.
Just right. Just right when the world went so wrong in college football for the top 10. Upsets all over the place. We talked about how topsy-turvy the National Football League is. College football is no better. The era of the portal and NIL has emitted some unpredictability, some disturbances amongst the blue bloods. Tom, what was the most shocking moment here in the most recent college football update for you?
Well, obviously, it was Alabama losing. But you've been in those games where everything's going right or everything's going wrong, and they had everything go wrong against them. It happens. Sometimes you can't overcome it with talent.
I look at that and I agree with you because I've been there, playing Butler, and you look up at the scoreboard and it's not even halftime yet, and they've scored 5 touchdowns, and everything is broken. Nothing can possibly be fixed.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, the Pavia kid, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, put on a show. He did everything. I wouldn't take one iota of respect away from that kid. He went out and won the football game.
There's no question, but you see some of those bounces they were getting. I mean, the ball was just bouncing their way, and you've got to have that against Alabama. You got to have great play. You got to have your good players play good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pulling things away from the quarterback or the game plan that they had, but sometimes you just get lucky and shit goes right.
But Nick Saban, St. Nick, said that that's the easiest place to play in college football, and that the only game you don't have to show up for in the SEC is against Vandy.
Yeah, exactly. And they played that before the game for them. Did you see that?
Oh, my
They played
goodness.
it for the whole team before the game.
Why give bulletin board material
Oh, my God.
of that ilk to a young, hungry football team, very well coached
Playing
team?
at home, letting their nuts hang. They got nothing to lose. Just
How about the fans?
Oh,
Rush the field,
yeah.
which is like a high school stadium. I mean, it's like a Texas high school stadium.
It's not that. It's not that small.
It is.
What does it hold? 25,000.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough. They took down
Not
the
to be in the
goalposts.
SEC. Yeah.
They took our producer Johnny was there. They took the goalposts down. They walked them almost 2 miles Broadway to the river. What a moment for the Nashville faithful that have gone through so many subpar seasons.
I'm just not that much of a fan. Maybe it's my problem, but to carry field goal all the way through campus, or just people lose their minds.
Have you ever rushed the field?
Yes, I did.
Where?
At Michigan State in like 1987. Michigan State beat Michigan.
The Lorenzo White team?
The Lorenzo White team, and I didn't rush the field. I got carried by the crowd. Like everybody
you went
was
in the
rushing
wave.
the field. I went in the wave, and I got carried out under the field. That's the only time. I don't even know.
I've never done it in
what
football.
I do, like run around, go crazy. I mean, it's stupid.
I've never done it in football. When Oklahoma basketball upset, when Calvin Sampson was there, when they upset Kansas, when Kansas was number one, I rushed the floor of that game and had the point guard Prince Fowler in my arms on ESPN.
Well, remember, we have a friend of ours that did it in college. He went out on the you were with him.
Yeah.
Nate Bush.
No, we're at Tiger Stadium.
So what's that? Tell the story.
Chasing down
Tell
Kirk
the
Kiss?
story.
All right,
so you're at the game.
So first of all, Nate Bush is one of the most gifted athletes I've ever been on a field with. And I say that
Me too.
East-West Shrine Game Snowball.
Me too.
Nate Bush, punt returner, wide receiver, had a full ride at Tennessee, ended up at Akron, and then he came to play football with us at Wayne State. While we're at Wayne State, Nate and I walked into Tiger Stadium, the old Tiger Stadium, back in the day when in the 7th inning, you just walk in the ballpark. There was that one side entrance. If the bleachers were open, you could walk in. So we meandered our way around security and got all the way over to the visiting team's box. And this is good because we're going to be talking a little bit of baseball today. We snuck all the way down to the front row batting circle of the opposition. And it is Jose Canseco. I think he was with the Rangers at the time. And Nate is giving it to him with both barrels. He's talking about the drunk drivings. He's talking about the steroids, the domestic abuse. Everything that you could rip from the headlines, Nate was pouring into Jose's ear. And Jose turns around with the two bats with the weights on them and shakes them. And that was the worst thing he could have done, because now he's interacting with the crowd. We know we're in his head now. So then it explodes even worse. So Kirk Gibson was in his second time back with the Tigers. This is when he came back to the Tigers. I said, Nate, it's ninth inning. He's going to hit a home run here. This is the moment he is going. And if he hits this home run, we are jumping over this fence and we are chasing him around like it's the Hank Aaron home run to break the record. And I get him all amped up. And sure enough, Gibson launches one out to center field. And I throw my leg over and I go, it's gone, it's gone. And before I can even turn around, Nate is on the field, much faster human being than I am, is on the field all the way to the baseline, almost where Gibson is. And the ball, if you remember how cavernous old Tiger Stadium was, 425 or 440 to straightaway center. It's a can of corn fly ball. It's in deep center field. And he is left stranded out there. Security comes out of everywhere. And we get perp walked out of Tiger Stadium.
Too?
Me too, because I'm sitting next to him.
Yeah.
But here's the punchline. Gibson did hit a game winner in extra innings later.
And you missed it.
And we were watching it from the bar. Because we just got
You didn't get taken to jail?
Got a little bit ambitious. No, they just let us go.
Just let you go.
It's Detroit.
Get the fuck out
This is Detroit.
Yeah.
Come on. A couple of guys rushing the field was low on the priority list for Detroit in the 1990s.
Nate was a good football player, but he had a couple screws loose, too.
Oh, we all do. Everybody.
We all do. But Nate had
to play football in the city of Detroit,
yeah,
and to live in Cass Corridor at that moment in time.
And to go to those practices and put up with all that shit.
A little bit of madness.
You had to have a couple screws loose. All of us did.
And madness is what has ensued, as I mentioned. There were more upsets than just Vanderbilt over Alabama, although that one's getting all the attention. Arkansas knocked Tennessee down more than one peg. You had Missouri get knocked out of the top 10. Obviously, Michigan went on the road to Washington. Not a huge upset, but they get beat and slide all the way down to number 24. So a lot of shifting.
That wasn't even an upset.
Oh, and from a gambling standpoint.
Washington was favored, yeah.
From a ranking standpoint, they slide, but no, you're right. Yeah. Georgia lost to Alabama. So, you kind of vet these things out now. And the Oregon team, I perped up for a national championship prediction, is still sitting up there. Obviously, the Ohio State roster that, let's make sure that I clearly define this, the NIL contract value that has been estimated for the Ohio State starting lineup is more, $20 million. That's what the estimate is, that $20 million has gone in to this Ohio State starting lineup is more money than the Detroit Tigers roster makes. The Detroit Tigers roster. You want to talk about the greatest value?
Is that true?
The starting lineup for Detroit. So Detroit, not you're taking Javier Baez off Detroit's route because he's injured on the injured reserve.
Yeah.
The active players for the Detroit Tigers make $18.8 million combined. Ohio State.
Is that true?
Ohio State makes 20 in NIL.
Well, that's the estimate. Besides the last month, that would have been fine. Now?
But it looks like Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State have separated themselves from the pack at this point in the season. Now
they're undefeated.
Three of those teams are going to play each other.
Yeah.
If they get to the Big Ten championship game, they'll play each other. But Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are all going to get vetted out in the Big Ten season.
You're just talking about the top four, and you still have Georgia and Alabama, who are probably the number one, number two teams in the nation.
Right. I'm just talking about undefeated.
I know what you're talking about.
Miami looks like they've got the cleanest, and they had to pull out an absolute miracle against Cal.
I've watched Miami the last 2-3 games. I don't think they're that good.
No.
I just don't.
And Cristobal looks like he's kind of wandering through the game. I mean, some dubious decisions from the coaching staff on that team. Cam Ward put the team on his back in the fourth quarter. They scored 21 unanswered to beat Cal.
Like the last 3 games, they've come from behind to win. And games that they were favored by 3 touchdowns, a lot of them.
I look at Cam Ward and then Genty, the kid from Boise State, the running back who's blowing up numbers. They've probably separated themselves in the Heisman balloting, but Miami probably right now at 6-0 is in the most, I'm not going to put the word guarantee on anything. They've got the easiest path to the college football playoff.
Yeah.
They're 6-0. They're in a weak conference. They got to beat Clemson.
Exactly. They're not in the SEC, right? So
the SEC is going to be a gauntlet.
Yeah, it's going to be. You can lose any team can win any game, and any team can lose any game in the SEC. So I mean, within reason. But
who do you think sneaks up this list that you didn't see coming?
Probably Iowa State. They've got an easier schedule than the other teams, and I think that they're going. I mean, obviously they're going to be into the playoff at the end of the year.
Isn't it funny how many of these coaches like Campbell? It's Campbell, right, for Iowa State. These guys come. How many of these guys come through Toledo? Nick Saban, him. And like every time you turn around, it's one of these guys who somehow.
A lot of these
come
guys
through the MAC.
A lot of these guys have been 15. I mean, that's everybody always said. Why didn't you get into coaching? So you live in New Mexico, then you live in Texas, then you live in Idaho. Then you live in Toledo, right?
Yeah.
Toledo. I mean, a lot of these guys have coached at so many different places. I mean, even look at the coaches that pop up now that were head coaches before. I don't know if Toledo's a hub, or I don't think it is, or maybe it's just a place you don't want to go.
I think they got a lot. It's kind of like Miami of Ohio used to be with Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler.
Yeah.
There's these weird little hubs. Arkansas from Frank Broyles. We were talking about that when we talk about the coaches episode. But there's these weird little hubs that have coaching excellence and coaching trees that break
look at Michigan
off
State. Michigan State with Nick Saban, and then I mean, it's interesting. It's a good old boys club, though. They all stick together. They all know each other.
I look at Michigan State and the quarterback Childs. At moments, he looks like he could be brilliant, and he's going to turn this program around. And other moments,
you're like, wow. I can't believe he threw that.
And Jonathan Smith had him for a whole year last year at Oregon State. This kid isn't brand new.
No.
So that's what has you scratching your head is that they've been together for a year and they were successful.
Is it maybe more the situation you're put in sometimes than it is? Like even look at Aaron Rodgers. I thought for sure he would go to the Jets and just tear it up. And it's not just his receivers not getting open. He's not making good passes. But he did have a lot of drops last game. Did you watch that early game on Sunday?
Yeah, and I think he gets frustrated and tries to do too much. I think he's getting impatient with this, which is why I think they made the coaching change.
Yeah, but what a tough...
There's going to be a reckoning, though, still.
Yeah, to be a head coach of Aaron Rodgers, right? You can't tell him nothing. He ain't listening to you. No. He doesn't want to change. He wants to run his plays his way. He doesn't want to run the football. Would they run the football 6-7 times last game?
Yeah, and they got
that many. And they got that great running back. Yeah,
they got 2 good running backs.
It's almost like he's uncoachable when you get that.
There's going to be a reckoning still on this coaching thing because he did wear Robert Saleh wore the Lebanese flag in London on his sweatshirt, and then he gets fired the next week. I'm not saying it has anything to do with anything, but it's already been brought up by Fox News. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
it's already a thing.
Yeah,
right. That he wore the Lebanese flag patch. He's an Arab American, and then he gets fired right after the game. So
I mean, you
we'll
better
see.
be careful.
Woody Johnson's
going to have, know who you work for.
He's
right?
going to have some splaining to do.
Yeah.
We get back to the college football rankings. Clemson is another one that has looked utterly dominant in all their games except their loss.
Yeah.
There's going to be, like Vanderbilt, you're going to get all the bounces one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's going to wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You're going to have the wrong bulletin board material. Your team's going to get in the wrong state of mind. And these mistakes are contagious. Lack of concentration and lack of focus is contagious on the team.
When I look back at football, when it was more of a running game, you could predict a little better, right? You just know, if you run for 150 yards, you're probably going to run for 150 yards. I mean, unless you come across a great defensive team. But you can predict that. The passing game is just so hard to predict.
So it's a handful of plays in a season that determine whether or not you're going to be in the dance or not.
Back 30 years ago, it was the same.
There have been some statistical anomalies this year. So the one, Ashton Genty, the running back for Boise State. And obviously Boise State's been on the national radar for a while. They've had some big upsets. They're the mid-major that everybody loves. They're the little kind of little engine that could.
Yeah.
This kid is sitting right now at 10 yards per carry. He's got over 1,000 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. And we're like, what, a handful of games into the season?
The problem is his competition that he's playing against.
Sure.
Right? I mean, we throw Alabama in there.
Are you saying that because he plays Hawaii this weekend?
Yes. He's going to have 15 yards a carry, and he's going to have 10 carries for 150 yards. And, that's the problem is the competition that he's playing against. But
I will run it down for you, though. Utah State, he goes for 186. Washington State, a decent football program, he goes for 259. I don't even know who that team is.
Yeah.
PR State.
I know.
Oregon, they lost to Oregon, but they only lost 37-34. And we know Oregon is a good team, right?
Yeah.
So they lost by a field goal, and he went for 192 against Oregon.
Okay.
That is a legit number. All right. And then Georgia Southern, another perennially, Georgia Southern's usually a good defensive team, at least, right? Maybe they won't have the offense to beat you. He goes for 267. Legit stats.
Legit. Until you play, Notre Dame or you play Penn State or you play somebody that's got a top 10 defense.
Do you think James Franklin has finally got this Penn State team to where they're not going to lose the big game?
No. I
You don't.
No, I don't.
You don't believe it?
No, I don't believe it. I just don't think they're that good. They haven't covered. They haven't covered yet this year.
See, only you would know these wonderful nuggets.
They have not covered one spread this year.
They're the gamblers.
I think the only spread they cover is the first game of the season they played West Virginia. That one they covered. But other than that, the other 5 or 4, they haven't covered.
So I'd like to see Penn State challenge at a higher level than they have. I mean, I think they are one of the blue blood programs of college football. I'd like to see them get back into a real conversation. Same thing with Tennessee. I think those are the two programs, right? You want to see Tennessee challenging for SEC championships. You want to see Penn State challenging for Big Ten championships. It makes both those conferences so much better. And Notre Dame seems like they figured out what their strong suit is. Leonard, the quarterback, has settled down, and after the Northern Illinois debacle, it looks like they're back on track and knocking on the door of the top 10. Anybody who you would look at and say, okay, they're going to fall out of there, but the schedule is going to come back to meet them.
Penn State. I'm sure they got to play Michigan. They got to play Ohio State still.
And you don't think those can be victories?
I think it's going to be tough. I don't think anyone's going to beat Ohio State. And they've had their games where they haven't looked the best, but they just have too much talent. And the quarterback's good. They've just got too much talent.
I don't think that Ohio State can lose this season if Will Howard plays within himself.
Correct.
What I foresee happening in one or more games is Ryan Day falling in love with his play calling and deciding to use Will Howard in ways that Will Howard is not best suited. If Ryan Day, like he often does, decides that his embarrassment of riches is something that he has to show off to the world, and he stops pounding the football. If I had Travion Henderson and this Judkins kid, I would run the ball 45 times a game, and your nose would be bleeding by the fourth quarter, right? I would punch and punch and punch, and I would only throw the football on play action because my running game would be so effective. All 8 players in the box would have to challenge the run.
I agree. I love it when teams run the football. It's just not sexy.
No.
It's just not.
But it wins.
And all the people in the stadium and all the people that are watching, they want to see the ball in the air. They just do. It's just the new way of football.
And they feel like if
running 4 yards in a cloud of dust is boring.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with this. They feel like, and they being coaches, they feel like if I don't show off the passing game, it's going to be tougher and tougher to recruit big play wide receivers. If a receiver thinks, oh, I'm going to a school that runs the ball 50 times a game, they ain't coming.
You know, there's so many contradictions in sports, right? You play to win the game, yet you got to win the game in a certain way.
You got to manage it.
You got to manage it in a certain way that's sexy. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
That's why you get the NIL money. That's why all the people come to the games. It's entertainment. So you have to be. You can't just win. You have to be entertaining. Remember when even when we played football, we would just run the football. Because we didn't throw because we threw a lot of interceptions.
Make no mistake, there are teams that throw the football like it's a running game.
Oh,
Andy Reid,
yeah,
and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Are doing and Tom Brady, well, obviously, famously,
yeah.
They don't have to average 12 yards per pass attempt.
Yeah.
They can average 7 or 8 and be really effective.
Yeah, different game, but people want to see the ball in the air, no question.
I think the Clemson-Miami matchup is going to be, the winner of that game is going to go to the playoff, and they're going to go to the playoff relatively unscathed. With Notre Dame's schedule, I think they're getting in because I don't think they're going to lose again.
I think Miami's overrated. I really do. I like the quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He's good. I just think they're overrated.
Yeah, my take on that is that Cristobal is not what they thought he was.
No.
I don't think that.
Back to coaching again. I know you think it's important.
I do think it's important.
I mean, it's important, X's and O's, but if you don't have the Jimmies and Joes, it don't matter.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Well, we'll fight now. Oklahoma and Texas square off this weekend in the Red River War. When this episode comes out, that result will be in. That's a big game that has to be quantified. But the biggest game in the land is going to be Ohio State and Oregon, number 2 and number 3. Yeah. You couldn't have set it up any better to have a mid-season moment where arguably the two most star-studded offensive lineups are going to be meeting each other, and they're meeting each other in Eugene, Oregon, which is a notoriously difficult place to play.
Yeah.
What's your prediction?
We keep saying the home dogs, they're not covering anymore. I don't know. I like Oregon.
Dylan Gabriel's not afraid of a big game.
No.
He beat Texas last year.
It is kind of different, though, when these conferences combine. It's different football. That football out west is different. They fire the ball in the air. Can you imagine a running back averaging 10 yards a carry in the SEC?
No.
It ain't happening.
No.
I don't care I don't care if Henry came back or whoever came back. You're not going to average 10 yards in the SEC.
Pace of the game is going to be key. Again, if Ohio State can stay disciplined and pound the football and turn it into a slugfest, Oregon has no chance. However, if Oregon can spread the field and make Ohio State defend, 52 and a half yards wide, right? If they have to defend the field, then this could become a track meet, and it could get interesting in the fourth quarter.
I think Ohio State's got enough athletes to cover pretty much anyone, but we'll see. It's going to be a true test.
Oregon puts the pass rush on you.
Yeah.
If I were Ohio State, I would make sure that my backup quarterback was ready. Because the Oregon Ducks are not going to be afraid to get one little cheap shot in, and let's see who the backup quarterback. I'll take the 15-yard penalty. Let's see who the backup quarterback is.
Yeah, I don't even know who is the backup quarterback for Ohio State.
McCord is gone, right?
Yeah, McCord.
He's at Syracuse. They just upset UNLV in overtime, knocked UNLV out of the undefeateds, and he's having a hell of a year. Yeah. So maybe McCord wasn't the problem. Maybe Ryan Day's play calling and lack of trust in his quarterback was the problem. I don't see a huge difference between Will Howard
So you
and
don't
McCord.
like Ohio State, huh? You don't like the head coach.
I love Judkins and
You
Henderson.
don't like the head coach.
I just think.
Does he annoy you? He's a little annoying.
Well, I think he's a
He's got
whiner.
something, yeah.
I know he's a candy ass. He just looks like the kind of guy you punch him in the face and he goes and cries. And he talks, right? He's a barking dog. And then you punch him in the face one time really hard and this is a real fight? I thought it was a talkie fight. We don't talkie, we punchy. Yeah, he's not standing up to the blast. And you can see it in the way he deals with the press and the way he deals with these controversies. He gets very defensive. You see his cheeks flush up. He gets red in these press conferences when he gets a tough question. He's obviously a great X's and O's tactician. I mean, he puts a really good offensive game plan together. I don't want to, by any stretch of the imagination, try to criticize.
You're just calling him out personally?
Exactly. It's an ad hominem argument, right? I'm going at his manhood, not his ability or his intelligence.
Oh, God.
Is that fair?
I guess so. I mean, the funny thing is, when you're on these teams or you're around people, 90% of the time it's different than what you would think. Like when you have an opinion on him. And
it's probably more than
guy's
that.
Probably a fucking badass. You'd
Probably
love
a
him to
great guy.
death.
He'd probably knock me on my ass.
Probably knock you.
Probably
the shit
drag
out
me
of you.
around the
Exactly.
parking lot like a rag doll.
What do you think you are, 30?
Yeah. He's probably doing mixed martial arts in his basement. And,
He'd choke you out in about 3 seconds.
ready to arm bar me and put me to sleep. I have no doubt. But I'm going to give you a shocker just to kind of leave this college football discussion. Obviously, Texas at the top of this, we just said, has to go through Oklahoma. But way down there at the bottom of the top 25, sitting there at number 22, is Pittsburgh, still not having lost anybody. Holstein, the quarterback, playing very, very well
Haven't
there.
played anyone.
Narduzzi is a coach who gets upsets.
Yeah.
He gets his team prepared very well. I'm just saying, don't sleep on Pittsburgh yet. And then the shocker of the Big Ten, and this is the guy I'm about to talk about next, who's 6-0 in the Big Ten, who said in his first press conference when they asked him, "Hey, coach, how are you going to recruit to the University of Indiana for a football team?" And what did he say? He said, "I'll tell you how I recruit. I tell them that I win. Google me." And what does the guy do? I mean, talk about Babe Ruth calling your shot.
Yeah.
He walked into his first press conference and said, "I'll tell you how to recruit. I win." And he is 6-0. And when you look through the history of this guy, going back to Nick Saban when he was coaching at Alabama, he's right.
Back to the things you don't say. I win is one of them. Unless you
backed
really
it up.
Huh?
He backed it up.
Until you don't. He hasn't played anyone yet.
We'll see. Let me challenge that.
I mean,
for
if
1
he's going
second.
into Ohio State the week before he's going into Ohio State, he's going to say, "I win."
He beat Maryland. You don't think much of Maryland. He beat Northwestern. We both don't think much of Northwestern. He beat Western Illinois and Charlotte. That's nobody. He beat Florida
International.
So Maryland is his best win. Agreed.
Okay.
That's not a great win.
Oh, I mean,
He beat UCLA. He pounded UCLA.
where was
not
he
a great
Where
win.
was he at before coming here?
Where was Signetti? We're talking about Signetti. Signetti was at James Madison. Is that where he just?
And he just wins at James
Well,
Madison?
they won the national championship twice. Well, I'll pull that together. But
You're in the big boy leagues now.
He's
You're
won
not at James Madison.
He's won everywhere he's been.
Okay.
And he's coached with Nick Saban.
Okay.
And other great coaches along the way. Okay. So we'll see how Indiana plays out for the rest of this. You brought it up. I brought it up. We just talked about Babe Ruth calling his shot. It's the segue into baseball. We've talked about how Tiger crazy the city of Detroit is.
Yeah.
So this is the part of our episode where we switch from the college football update to Major League Baseball's update. We're in October. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 teams in the American League, 1, 2, 3, 4 teams in the National League. -1, the Phillies just got knocked out. So the New York Mets are moving on to the National League Championship Series. The winner of Game 5 on this particular day, San Diego and the Dodgers. Are there Tigers have a knockout game against the Cleveland Guardians? Can't believe I'm saying Guardians.
I know.
Such a shitty
have
nickname.
to.
And then New York Yankees will be playing the Royals to try to advance as well on the American League side. So that's who's there. Give me your quick World Series prediction.
Yankees, Padres.
Yankees, Padres.
Yep.
Tatis.
Yankees, Padres. Yankees just have too much firepower. They've got so many pitchers. They've got the best hitters in the game. They've got how much, what is it, 4 or 5 times larger payroll than any team in baseball? They've got the best players.
I'm going to go wild card. I'm going to go New York Mets, Detroit Tigers. I would love to see the repeat of the 84 World Series with San Diego and the Tigers.
If our bats stay hot like they are, we've got a chance. But I think our pitching, after Skubal,
It's the most amazing thing that baseball has ever seen. He pitches whoever he feels like is the analytics. He's running this thing through an algorithm, and he's saying, this is my best chance to go against this lineup. Montero's pitching 1 inning. Holton's pitching 1 inning. Here comes Bo Bieski. I can't even pronounce these guys' names.
I know. I didn't know any of them either.
I heard the rundown last night about what their ERAs were when they were in Toledo less than a year ago. Half these guys had ERAs that were 4, 5, 6.
Really?
They're doing twice as good in Major League Baseball as they did in minor league baseball. What A.J. Hinch is doing is the greatest managerial season of all time. He is taking a team that has under a 20. He's taking a team whose entire payroll on the active roster is less than some of the pitchers they're facing.
Yeah.
Single guy.
It's like Moneyball, right?
It is Moneyball.
It's like Moneyball. Except you didn't plan on it.
He's going matchup to matchup. Yes.
Look at their roster. A month ago they didn't trade school. Yeah. So that's the thing too. Like 2 months ago, before the trade deadline, they didn't trade Skubal, right?
Thank God.
Why?
Because
they should have. They didn't know they're going to the playoffs.
No, I think what they looked at is they looked at value in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So Skubal and Sale, right? It's important that we mention this has been a pretty historic season. You had 2 pitchers this year, one in the American, one in the National, that won the Triple Crown for pitching in the same season. Sale, 18 wins, led the National League in strikeouts. Skubal had a couple more strikeouts. He had 0.100th of a lower ERA than Skubal did. So he goes ERA, strikeouts, wins in the National League. Skubal, Detroit Tigers ace, goes wins, ERA, strikeouts in the American League. Both of them far and away the 2 top pitchers in the game. Then you've got the same thing with the hitters. Aaron Judge for the New York Yankees bats .322, third in the league, 58 homers, 144 RBIs, Silver Slugger, best batter in the American League. And Ohtani for the Dodgers, also still alive, bats .310. He's second in the National League. By the way, what a weak league the National League is, where their second best batting average is .310. You'd have never seen that in our era growing up. He goes 54 homers, 130 RBIs, though, and he can pitch. The Ohtani thing is next level, but yeah. Ohtani and Judge have epic seasons. Skubal and Sale have epic seasons, and now we're seeing it play out in the playoffs. So when I look at A.J. Hinch, he feels like he's got a win with Skubal, okay? And then he just needs to piece together 2 more wins in a 5-way, right, with a stat. And then he's going to have Skubal again in Game 5.
I just think they caught a good run, and it's affected everything from hitting to pitching to fielding to, when's the last time we've had an error? I don't think we have.
We just had one.
Did we have one?
It didn't affect us, though.
It didn't affect us.
It didn't affect us.
So ground. I haven't seen a ground ball error. I must have not.
Yeah, we had a throwing error against the Guardians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But
it didn't affect us.
Yeah, but just.
By the way, the Guardians haven't scored in 19 innings.
Yeah, I know.
They haven't scored since the end of the first game.
Just not luck our way. It's luck, right? Bad luck their way. You're going to the game tonight.
I'm going to the game tonight. I'll be there. They're going to save Skubal for Game 5, I'm hearing. So we're not going to try to do a quick turnaround with
Who's
him.
it going to be? Who's?
Does he ever care? I mean, who knows who's it gonna be? He's throwing out guys out there for 1 inning, 1.5 innings. It's all matchups. It's fascinating. People are talking now about the starting pitcher is going to have to face 3 batters. They're going to put a new rule in because they don't like what A.J. Hinch is doing. It's throwing off it's too many stoppages in play to change pitchers and blah, blah, blah. Kiss my ass, Major League Baseball. You finally got a story where a team has a miracle run going 35-12 or whatever they did in the final games of the season. Team that was completely out of it, left for dead, who has no payroll. So David got his slingshot warmed up for Goliath, and now you're going to try to piss on his parade. Yeah. It's classic. Don't fix what isn't broke, Major League Baseball. People are loving this. I'm in an airport lounge in Dallas, Texas, and everybody's watching the Tiger game. Can you believe this team? They were nowhere. Yeah. They were bare. People love an underdog, so shut up and enjoy it.
You sound like Moneyball.
Yeah. What is a starting pitcher that pitches 1.5 innings?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, but they've always done that. I mean,
Never.
Not a starting pitcher.
Never a starting pitcher.
But at the end of the 7th, 8th, 9th
the
inning.
goal, up until A.J. Hinch decided to flip the model, the starting pitcher's goal in life was to pitch 4 2/3 because that's what gets you over half the game and gets you a legal at 5 innings, right? I mean, that's what makes you the winner of the game.
Yeah.
If not, it's just depending on where you took the lead in the game. I mean, they're having trouble even assigning who the winning pitcher is.
We're having trouble assigning this whole situation, whose fault it is. I mean, is it the coaching? Maybe. Did hitters just get hot? Maybe. Did pitchers just get hot? Have their good shit? Pitchers some days have their good shit.
How about this?
It's like golf. Some days you have your good shit. Some days you got nothing.
How about this? With the Malloy, the DH the other day. First of all, he's the DH. He's not a base stealer, but they got him batting leadoff because there's some analytical profile that said so. So he's 2 for 3 in the game, and they pull him, again, analytics, he's 2 for 3. They pull him for Kerry Carpenter, who doesn't have an amazing batting average. And what does Carpenter do when he comes into the game? He hits the game-winning home run.
Did you know that all 3 of those hits were with two outs?
Oh.
All 3. So when they were at first and third, the first guy hit a single, then another single, and the guy went to third,
runners
and
at the corners.
Then the home run. That was all with 2 outs.
Yeah, the little magic tweaks that are happening here are astounding.
Are working.
We got
if they weren't working, they'd be motherfucking the head coach.
Yeah.
Right?
And hopefully we close it out.
Yeah.
The Mets have advanced on the other side. You think that the San Diego Padres, Tatis is having an amazing season over Ohtani and his Dodgers. But this thing that Ohtani is doing, we haven't seen this pitcher hitter since Babe Ruth.
Okay, but
that's how long.
Yeah, maybe
since
ever.
Babe Ruth. Just because I love the history of baseball, I'm going to give you the Babe Ruth stat. Okay. Just so people don't think that Ohtani rivals Babe Ruth, because he doesn't. He has to triple his current output to get to where Babe Ruth was. I don't think people really understand the statistical relevance of Babe Ruth's career. He pitched for 5 years for the Boston Red Sox. He won 3 World Series as a Boston Red Sox pitcher. He was 94-46 with 17 shutouts. Wow. As a Boston Red Sox pitcher. His career ERA when he left the Red Sox was 2.28. In 1917 and 1916, he had over 20 complete games. He won over 20 games. His ERA in 1916 was 1.75, and he had 15 shutouts just in those 2 seasons as a pitcher. And then he said, I think I'm going to go bat and become a full-time player and become the all-time greatest hitter of all time.
Wow.
The numbers for Babe Ruth, not just being the home run champion, people don't realize when he hit 29 home runs when he came over to the Yankees in 1920 or 21, when he hit 29 home runs, the next closest guy to him hit 12.
Wow.
And then the dead ball era ended. They treated baseballs a little differently.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. And
yeah, I remember there was a dead ball there. I don't remember the name.
It gets overplayed. The balls were not constituted of any different material. They were treated a little differently, meaning you had fresh balls all the time. That's the live ball era. You had fresh balls. They weren't the dirty old scuffed ball that kept getting played with all the time. You didn't get to gouge the ball and do things to tear it up as a pitcher. They made the balls treated differently because they saw how many people came to the ballpark when home runs were being hit. They wanted to see the Babe Ruth 29 home runs propelled. But even when Babe Ruth goes for 54 home runs 51 home runs and then 54 home runs, even when he has those big banner seasons, nobody else is getting like more than 28, 30. Yeah. He's still so far ahead of everybody else for so long. And really, it was the swing. People started, remember the level swing? Your fundamentals were always be level. Babe Ruth's swing wasn't level. He had an uppercut swing that lofted the ball into the bleachers. Right? And other guys started to see that, see how much money he was making, see how much notoriety he got, and they changed their swings to match that uppercut lift, and then you end up with home run hitters.
It's just amazing in sports. I'm even thinking about, back 10 years ago, if somebody threw the ball like Patrick Mahomes, we'd say he'll never make it in the NHL or in the NFL. Never. He'll never make it in the NFL. He throws sidearm.
Yeah.
They all throw sidearm. You see the high school kids now? They're all throwing sidearm. Yeah. They're all doing this behind the back shit.
Innovations that spark.
That are right in front of you that are not, that innovation, though, throwing sidearm, even when Matt Stafford used to do it, people used to say, oh, that was a bad throw. He threw it sidearm or something. That's all they do now. All of them throw sidearm. The defensive linemen are 6'4".
Yeah.
They slide it right in.
And this whole thing with complete games, like I brought up those numbers. In 1917, Babe Ruth throws 35 complete games. In that era, it was almost a manly pride thing. You completed your game as a pitcher. Well, guess what? In the 1970s, Raleigh Fingers and people came in and said, we need closers. We need guys who have great stuff at the end of the game to close it out. And now evolve all the way to 2024, and A.J. Hinch says, well, not only do we not need either of those two things, we just need the best matchup. Who's pitching against this guy this inning?
Wow.
And it's just someone willing to disturb the norm, the status quo, challenge it, and say, why? Why do we have to do it that way?
Because you don't have the best players. Maybe that. Right? When you have an inferior team.
But what's the cliche? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Right? He innovates because he didn't have the big Chris Sale. Sure. He's got one of them. He's got Tarek Skubal.
Yeah. That's it. One.
And the rest of it plays itself out. So I'm not going to get into pitchers, but I do want to hear you tell me who you think the greatest baseball players of all time are.
Well,
obviously, there's going to be a bunch.
Obviously, Babe Ruth's number one, but Willie Mays. He
say, hey, kid. I think Willie Mays, if I'm not mistaken, it's a hard stat to believe. I think Willie Mays went to 24 All-Star games in a row.
Wow.
He played 24 or 25 years of Major League Baseball, and I believe he went to the All-Star game every year. He was Rookie of the Year. He won the Golden Glove at his position a dozen times. He won the Silver Slugger, best hitter, a dozen times. There's a lot of people out there who say Willie Mays is the best player of all time because of the fielding. But when you put Babe Ruth's pitching in there, I don't know. I think those cancel each other out.
You've heard that Wally Pipp story, right?
Yeah.
With Lou Gehrig, right? He took a game off. He had an ankle injury, right? He said, you know what? I'm just not going to play this game. And Lou Gehrig stepped in for him 24 years later. Right?
That's right.
So nobody. You think about how hard it is to make a Major League Baseball team. Those guys play for or hockey. A lot of those guys play for 20 years. At least in the NFL, the average lifespan is like 3 years. Well, that's you got a chance to make a team.
And that sparks my quote from Joe DiMaggio, another great Yankee, 13 straight All-Star games. And went to World War.
Or was it Joe DiMaggio, not Lou Gehrig?
No, Lou Gehrig. You got that one.
I think, okay.
Yeah. He replaced him and went on. And
the Wally Pipp
never got his job back. But DiMaggio had a great quote. They asked him, Joe, why do you play so hard on Why do you? He ran everything out full speed. He'd go for a ball in the stands. I mean, he was just like a dogged competitor. And people would be like, "Gee, it's a 162 game season, Joe. Like, you gotta." I think back then it might have been 155. You gotta relax. You gotta pace yourself. And he would say, "Today, in the crowd somewhere, there's a kid who saved up and came here for the first time. Every day, somebody's watching me for the first time. And I don't want a single kid to ever leave this ballpark and be able to say that they didn't see Joe DiMaggio's best."
Yeah, that's old school.
That's old school.
That's old school. That ain't new school. I mean, do I think that, players take off preseason games and maybe football's a little different because you can't fake football, right? You can, but you can't.
You're going to get devoured.
Yeah, it's like
you might not make it off the game without a stretch.
Thank God they got rid of the all-star games in football, took the pads off.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can't play half speed.
No, it's silly.
It's silly. It's stupid. You get hurt. You literally get hurt worse playing half speed than you do full speed.
Yeah. Anyway. The awareness level of football can get you in trouble if you're playing half speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when I watch players now, when they go to make a hit and they take their head out of the hit, they have to. You get thrown out of the game.
Yeah.
Right? It's tough. I couldn't play. I can't imagine doing it. Couldn't take my helmet out of it.
I want to bring up a couple of more guys. A lot of people of my father's era, they think of the Detroit Tigers and they think of Al Kaline. Al Kaline was an epic Detroit player, came up rookie of the year, led the league in batting, youngest batting champion at 19. And then, of course, at the end of his career, he wins the 68 World Series. But the greatest Tiger of all time. And his career has been misreported. There's been a lot of misreporting about him, was Ty Cobb. You go back to Ty Cobb's statistical snapshot, and not only was he have the most hits before Pete Rose broke his record, may Pete Rose rest in peace, another recent passing, but he batted 400 3 times. I mean, 400 is unreachable in today's day and age.
Yeah.
And he did it 3 times.
So, like you brought up Aaron Judge earlier. He batted what?
322.
322.
And he was third in the league.
So what was number one?
Witt was batted like in the 340s.
Okay.
Where nobody's getting close anymore.
To 400
Tony
anymore.
Gwynn flirted with it. Another rest in peace, Tony Gwynn, one of the great hitters. He flirted with it. Joe DiMaggio flirted with it in his era. No, Joe DiMaggio might have had a. Joe DiMaggio.
Did you hear that stat? On
Ted Williams is the last 400, I think.
Did you hear the stat on Tony Gwynn? He went against the pitcher for Texas, Nolan Ryan. Okay, my numbers are off, but they're close. He went against like Nolan Ryan like 100 times. He struck out once.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's something like that.
I know,
and it might be more than 100. But he went against Nolan Ryan. He struck out like once.
Yeah, and he didn't. I don't think he. Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz, the great Braves pitchers.
Yeah,
they couldn't get him out.
Anything. Yeah.
Barry Bonds has the most ridiculous stat lines of all time. Now we can get into the steroid era, but before the steroid era with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Barry Bonds was outstanding. And when you look at, he did hit 30 home runs twice with the Pirates, long before the steroid era. And when you look at, besides that 73 home run anomaly season, and what was that, 2001, he hit like 40-ish per year, right? Yeah. It's the other things that you forget about. Like he won 8 Gold Gloves. He was 12-time Silver Slugger top hitter in baseball. He was walked intentionally more times in 2004 than 5 different teams were combined. He was walked intentionally in his career more times than the Miami Marlins have been intentionally walked as a franchise in their history. Some of these things, he's the only member of the 500 stolen base, 500 home run club. Nobody's ever done that. And over a 4-year period, 40% of his at-bats were either walks or home runs.
Yeah. No, he was awesome. And you bring in the steroid era too. He was good before steroids, but steroids, they take you to another level. You know, and I mean, look at all the guys. Look at The Rock now, and look at Joe Rogan. All these guys are on. They're all on
human growth
testosterone.
hormone, some kind of a variable, some supplemental help.
Absolutely. So it's part of it, and there's so many other. There's guys today that are on that shit. There's no doubt.
And just to clinch,
There's no doubt.
and just to clinch that for you, with Sosa, McGuire, Bonds all going 70 plus. And nobody being able to do that since. Of course, the other one that people throw up is Brady Anderson, who had a 50 home run season, and all the rest of his seasons in his life were 20. Okay?
Yeah.
So Aaron Judge, who only hit 58 this year, phenomenal, is 6'7", 282 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dude's a monster.
Is he 282?
Well, I mean, that might have been I might have a misprint there,
Oh.
but he's a big boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Ohtani is 6'4", 210. Judge is 6'7". These guys, these are the two guys that have a chance to be in that Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, Jimmy Fox, Mel Ott, although Mel Ott was 5'9", 175 pounds and hit over 500 home runs. You look at these guys and you think Aaron Judge in his 9th season and Ohtani in his 7th season, they're both going to play another decade.
Is it Ohtani's 7th season already?
Yeah, and he played in Japan.
Wow. Okay.
So he had professional seasons before he got to the U.S. team. And Ohtani, Ohtani's already got 2 MVPs.
Back to the guaranteed money, when we were talking about Watson for Cleveland. It's what you have to do. It's how do you make all this money in the NFL or the Major League Baseball and not pay people and guarantee it? Baseball contracts are guaranteed. They're 100% guaranteed.
What did he get? $700 million for 7 years, or was it less years than that?
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I'll say about Ohtani is, from what I understand from a friend of mine who's got season tickets out there at Chavez Ravine, the reason why his deal made sense to them is because these Japanese businessmen fly in to L.A. from Japan and they bought out all the luxury boxes.
Really?
Yeah. So that deal was already set. Like, somebody already said, get him out of Anaheim, get him over to the Dodgers,
and how did
we're going to get everything.
Money? How did he take?
I know he took it and gave it to a guy to bet on games for him, but they're going to brush that under the rug.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Oh yeah.
He gave it to somebody else.
His assistant
to bet on
games.
Games.
Has disappeared back to Japan under the ruse of him being a horrible embezzling gambler. I'm sure he took that right to the bank.
Yeah. Well, the owners are making it, and if the owners are making it, they can pay it out.
Yeah, they sure can. So you've got the New York Yankees and the San Diego Padres. Who's going to win that one, you think?
The Yankees.
You think the Yankees are going to win the World Series again?
I do. I just think their pitching is too good and their hitting's too good. It's just, you can have a game where everything goes against you, but in general, over time, just good players are going to.
I think it's going to be the ultimate
win.
The ultimate upset.
You think
seasons.
The
Tigers and the Mets, the two teams that
are
have
going to the.
You look at the '69 Miracle Mets, this year's 2024 Tigers. They're the two teams that came from back the furthest in the second half of the season. I think it makes for a great storyline.
I think it's a great storyline. I just think our pitching's going to let us down sooner or later.
Well, we shall see, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another expertly produced, mediocrely researched, and profoundly inspirational.
Yes.
GOATcast. We're calling these GOATcasts now.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a whole new thing.
Okay.
Get with the program, will you?
Did you get you got to tell
the
me.
show notes? If you look in the show notes, you can follow us. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, if you actually want to look at our ridiculous aging faces. We do really appreciate the audience. Go to the website at GOATQuest.com. We're getting great comments from everybody. Please leave us reviews. We want to improve this as much as we possibly can. And we want you to go out into the world and be the GOAT at whatever you are doing today. Sayonara, my good man.
Yeah.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.